meeting to order. The chair notes there is a quorum present and the flag is right in the back behind Leah. Let's do the flag salute. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, 2.0 is additions and revisions to the agenda. Do you guys have anything?
I do not.
Okay. 3.0 is correspondence and public comment. Individuals wishing to address the county court may do so at this time and at other times throughout the meeting. Speakers are asked to raise your hand to be recognized by the chair, give your name and address, and limit comments to 3 minutes. It looks like we just have county folks on, but I will just state for the record so the public knows, if you are here on Zoom, it is *6 to unmute yourself if you dialed in, or the lower left-hand side of your Zoom screen. We are informal here, so as we move through the agenda, if there's an item you want to weigh in on or ask a question, provide input, the court welcomes that. With that, let's move into correspondence. We have a few things in here. One, we learned earlier this week that the Fair Board actually got a second grant from the state for $277,777 to go toward the new event center / office. And
This is in addition to the other?
in addition to the million. So they will have about 1.3 million to work with state dollars. And then we'll hopefully be coming back to us with, here's what the plan is. And if there's additional funding we'll need to figure out how to close that gap. But a very healthy state investment in our fairgrounds, which is awesome. So congratulations. I know Leah did the bulk of that, I think. So
Did
good job.
all 36 counties apply? Or are they holding back?
Unclear. I find it odd that I would be surprised if all 36 had the time to submit. So it would not surprise me if the state maybe withheld some dollars and maybe is looking at a second round. So maybe there's another bite at the apple if there's additional funds.
Because that was the minimum
claimed. Yeah.
if everybody applied.
And it says that it will be available for us in spring of 2023. So,
Okay.
which actually
That's not that.
might be nice on your construction timeline anyway.
And it's, we have to spend and then get reimbursed. I believe.
Yes. Yeah, funds cannot be reimbursed for any project activity that will be using the grant funding until the contract has been fully executed. We're still waiting on the contract, so.
Okay.
But we'll keep you posted. Congratulations.
Great. Yeah,
That's great
good
news. In here, you also have the quarterly report from our Veterans Officer, Paul Conway. Again, he is just the service that he provides our veterans. The number of outreach things and meetings that he does is always very impressive. And as always, just a reminder, if you're listening in and you happen to know a veteran who could benefit from having a discussion with Paul about benefits, health care, any of those kinds of things, he is really great, really caring, and would be a great resource. So please use him. He is in the courthouse on Thursdays, but he works between the 3 counties. So you can always try him on his cell phone if it's not a Condon day. He's just fantastic. So anybody curious about what he's up to, that'll be part of the court's packet on the website under correspondence. We also received a letter from Catherine Greiner at the city, just basically giving us what the numbers were for the city running the pool. As you guys know, we have an IGA that is existing with the city, and so we'll just cut the check for the amount, but I wanted to put this on correspondence so you guys were aware of what it's costing the city to run it, kind of what the financials look like. So you're aware of those. Let me see if there's anything else in the packet. Is that?
Grant report from the Arlington Community School.
Oh, got it. And then there is a operational grant program final report from the Arlington Community Preschool. Again, we should be starting to see more and more of those coming in because the fiscal year closed. So for folks who are interested in seeing how your tax dollars are being used to support our local community partners, those grant final reports are always on the website as part of our packet. And that's just part of the transparency and accountability that the court has asked of our partners to make sure that the public is aware of how those funds are being spent. And I think that's it for correspondence. Let's move into the consent agenda. Any questions about it?
I don't.
I do not have any either. I move to approve the consent agenda.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda, which consists of consider approval of July 6, 2022 regular meeting minutes, consider approval of July 6, 2022 work session minutes, consider appointment of Gibb Wilkins to Gilliam County Library Board effective July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2026. Consider approval of ODOT agreement number 35377. Consider approval of bill request for Department of Human Services grant. Consider approval of grant submittal request for Department of Human Services grant for senior meal sites. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I was like, wait, you guys
Where'd they
made the
go?
motion. Do we have a problem?
Hello, we go.
Okay, moving on to unfinished business is 5.1, which is consider first reading and possible adoption of ordinance number 2022-03, implementing county authority to enforce the subsurface of sewage disposal program delegated to Gilliam County by the state of Oregon for on-site septic systems and declaring an emergency. That is a mouthful. Okay, so this is some of the housekeeping stuff that is just wrapping up the transition to Gilliam County Public Health as part of our environmental health and on-site septic system program with Umatilla County. The Department of Environmental Quality requires that we have an enforcement ordinance in place. So if someone is violating the rules regarding septic, putting a septic in that's unpermitted, fixing something that shouldn't be, all of those kinds of things, then we need to actually accept the responsibility to enforce the rules around that. So the draft ordinance that is before you was prepared by our legal counsel, Lori Cooper. It was based on ordinances that Umatilla sent to us that are in place at Morrow County and at Umatilla County. And so we pulled what was relevant from those two documents, and basically just implements our authority to enforce the rules. And then it also delegates the authority over to the Umatilla County Public Health Administrator to actually be able to do enforcement if there's a problem. So there is an emergency clause attached to it, which allows it to become effective upon adoption. Without it, we would have to do 2 readings and then it would be 90 days before, which would mean that anything between now and say like late October we would not be able to basically do any on-site septic.
So
Until
the
October.
emergency clause, even though this is announced as the first reading, means you don't have to have a second reading?
Correct. And it means that it's, we've noticed it, that there would be a first reading and possible adoption based on our legal counsel's advice. And then assuming that we are unanimous, the court has to be unanimous on this in order to allow there to not be a second reading and for it to take effect upon adoption. And like I said, really the impetus of this is there would be no on-site septic. Somebody has something that breaks and they need a permit to do it, there would be no way for them to get it until October because we don't have enforcement authority until then. So that's the need for the emergency clause. I think that is it. Do you guys have questions about it?
I do not.
I don't see there.
I move to have the first reading of ordinance number 2022-03 by title only.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded that we have the first reading of ordinance number 2022-03 by title only. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, in the county court of the state of Oregon, in and for the county of Gilliam, ordinance number 2022-03 in the matter of implementing county authority to enforce the subsurface of sewage disposal program delegated to Gilliam County by the state of Oregon for on-site septic systems and declaring an emergency.
I move to accept the first reading of ordinance number 2022-03 by title only and to adopt the ordinance.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the first reading of ordinance number 2022-03 by title only and to adopt the ordinance. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll get it signed today and start enforcing.
Yeah.
Hopefully, hopefully not. But it's there if Umatilla County needs it. Okay. Moving on, 6.1 under new business is consider approval of Pillar Consulting proposal for Condon Early Learning Center Annex project. So during our last meeting, I gave you guys just a little bit of an update on sort of the status of our childcare providers, the things that they have raised as barriers to care. And this was sort of a Delaney and I really just making sure that we, going into the rocket process, we're very clear about what, kind of the scope of the problem. During that update, I noted that for the Condon Early Learning Center, theirs is a facility issue. They have maxed out their facility based on the square footage allowed for the number of kiddos. So in their 0 to 3 room, they have 8 slots, all 8 are spoken for, and then they have 12 on a waiting list. And then on the preschool room for this upcoming year, I think they have up to 20 slots, 18 or 20, depending on the funding stream. Those are all spoken for. There isn't a wait list, but say if a family moved in with preschool age kids, we would not be able to accommodate them. And there's no place to put them. Like there's not a room that's sitting vacant that they could put them to. So I started having discussions with Catherine Greiner about the Condon Grade School building and whether we could look at converting maybe a classroom just to provide temporary space for the childcare to be able to expand to at least try to address the 0 to 3 wait list. And then if they ended up having additional families needing preschool, they could possibly look at like a second classroom. And so I was talking to Catherine about that, also raised it with Jeff Shaw, just to say like, could you walk through the building with me, look at whether, and with Janine Comboy, the director at Early Learning Center, because Janine knows what the state requires and Jeff could tell us whether we could do that in a facility. And so in the discussion with Jeff, what he said was, well, how much square footage do you need? And what are we actually talking about what you need? And I said, well, really 350 square foot per classroom, bathrooms that are, kid size, very close to the classroom, and maybe laundry facilities. And that's about it really. And then a playground. And based on that, Jeff suggested that actually we may be able to accomplish that in a modular build. And would I be interested in looking to see if maybe the school had property or something nearby? And we got to looking, and turns out the child care's property, the back side of the child care's property, there is a lot that they have storage on that Jeff thinks a modular building could fit on. When the child care center was built, they had it surveyed, so they do know like the parameters of the lot.
Is this the north side?
Yes, there's a greenhouse there right now, and I think they park like the fireworks trailer there maybe.
There's a little utility shed there.
And a little utility shed.
Oh, I remember.
So it kind of like comes up, and then there's John Reeser's kind of fence on the back side of that property. So I went to the Early Learning Center board and I said, would you guys be interested in us exploring this for you? Whether this could fit a modular and what that would look like and all of that, kind of do the preliminary work. And they said, yeah, obviously, yes, like, please help us. And so what you have before you is a proposal from Jeff that would include the topographical survey, so actually looking at all the elevations, because they would have to figure out, for instance, like how the playground's going to work between those two facilities and how where people would drop off their kids and, you know, all of the things that go into like siting a building, making sure there's going to be space for everything that they need. And so they would do a topographical survey, and then Jeff would take an initial sort of pass at how that lot would be laid out and just confirming that like a modular build would fit. For people who are like, oh, a modular build, we are not talking about manufactured like a trailer.
We're not talking like an office trailer, I hope.
No. What this looks like, I think.
Can they custom build them or?
Yes. So there's a company called Blazer Industries out of Almsville, Oregon, that does this. And basically when we're talking about modular build, what we're talking about is they are building a facility that has been drawn, customized exactly how we want it to look. It's built in Almsville with their workforce, and then it's shipped out and then placed on the site. And the advantage of that is in terms of, it's not necessarily cheaper because you want them to use high quality materials. So they're still going to have the same labor costs and things like that. But in terms of construction timeline, what that means is that they don't have to wait for the site to be ready in order to build, because they're building along in their factory over the winter while the site's being developed here. And so the timelines, Portland Public Schools, for instance, had a fire and replaced a facility in an emergency sort of procurement, and they had a building on site in 120 days. So like thinking about how that would look here and trying to find a contractor and, you know, all of those things, like you basically eliminate the need to find a local contractor and that can build it from scratch.
Are they the only fairly local company that does that? I was just wondering about the outfit in Goldendale that does modular construction.
I have not looked into Goldendale yet. The advantage, I think, we have not spoken with Blazer yet, but my understanding is one of the advantages is they've already gone through the state contracting process, which means
I think we're looking at using them
for the fairgrounds, which means that we could bypass the lengthy procurement that would take place for construction, because they're already approved on the state of Oregon's list for municipal governments to be able to do. So all of this to say, like, that's really getting ahead of ourselves, but that's kind of the full picture. Is the childcare in Condon is not going to be able to address the backlog or the wait list that they have unless we're able to find them a space. And in weighing between, do you try to modify the grade school building, which the city knows from their assessments has asbestos and a whole number of issues that are going to need to be abated, or do we look at investing in a more permanent modular solution that then we're not having to come back and revisit, you know, because eventually the childcare, I think, would want to have everything on site anyway. It just makes sense from a staffing management, all that kind of stuff. And so if we're able to help them put an annex on their property.
Well, it's even logistically a problem. Doing a grade school deal would be logistically a problem.
Yeah. The other thing, just a data point to note, is that our ARPA dollars can be used for this project. If we decided that we wanted to use it to actually build the annex, childcare is specifically noted, and increasing childcare availability as an allowable use for our ARPA dollars. So I just wanted to note that. I'm not prejudging whether that's where we want to put them, but if the court decided that they felt like that was the project, that is allowable. So that is basically it. What I'm asking for is a go ahead so that we can even assess whether that is a viable site. And Jeff can kind of draw up what that would look like, and that it will allow us to start talking to Blazer about, you know, what that process looks like and cost estimates and things like that to actually come back to have a more firm plan in place.
And my only question is, take me through why we don't have to get more than one bid on these types of projects.
For working with Jeff.
Mhm.
So under our procurement, policy that we have for Jeff's particular, how it's classified, I think is as a professional. So like you're able to hire engineers through a direct procurement if the cost is less than $100,000. And so typically what we have done, because generally when Jeff's working with us, he's working on our own buildings and has worked on them for a long time. And if there's an issue with the contractor, he's a block away. The court has historically said that the benefits of having somebody who are on-site local would outweigh any cost difference between going out
Accessibility,
for bid. Yeah.
history.
So legally under the law, because of the type of work that he's doing for us, we can do a direct procurement for, I believe the number is under $100,000.
No, I'm in favor of using local,
Yeah,
but I just want to make sure that,
and I find it interesting because like construction, that threshold is 5,000. So I find it really interesting that we can hire an engineer and spend 100,000 informally, but if we spend 5,000 on a construction project, we have to get bids, and it just seems like there's a
That's why
disparity, pretty good disparity in the law, but they must have had pretty good lobbyists when Oregon was drafting the procurement laws, because
why it's confusing and why I continue to ask.
Yeah.
It makes me nervous when we don't get bids.
Yeah, I totally get that. A lot of my job is figuring out what is this classified as and what's the threshold, because each kind of procurement has a different threshold. Like goods and services are 10,000, construction's 5. I don't know, like you
Yeah,
can't even
that
buy a door
Oh,
for
right.
like 5. But yeah, but you buy goods, and then I'm like, well, is a door goods and service? Maybe.
How can we put that in?
Yeah, so that piece is definitely confusing at times. Questions, concerns about the approach?
No,
I move to approve the professional services agreement with Pillar Consulting Group in the amount of up to $13,500 for a topographical survey and schematic design services for the Condon Early Learning Center Annex project.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the professional services agreement with Pillar Consulting Group in the amount of up to $13,500 for a topographical survey and schematic design services for the Condon Early Learning Center Annex project. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next up is 6.2, which is consider approval of contract for transportation grant services with Karen Barntish. Sherry, do you want to take it, or do you want? I see Shania's on here too.
Yeah, Shania, do you want to go?
Are you on there,
Is she
Shania?
there, or is she busy? She might be on the phone.
She might be on the phone.
I can go. Naya and Sabrina have been looking at other transportation departments in other counties. They went to Grant County and had a full overview of how their transportation department functioned. And one of the things they discovered was they have a contract with People Mover, which is Karen Barntish's expertise. She had shown them a number of tracking systems that she's developed to help gather the information for ODOT grants and the HRTG grants. And it just seemed like such I've done the grants. And believe
You've seen
me, having a tracking system that all that information goes into, and all you have to do is pull that up and say, this goes here and this goes here in those grants, would be a really big asset. So they asked her if she could come and spend some time and help them develop those for Gilliam County. And this is the contract for Karen to come give us that.
help.
So my question is, it's kind of open-ended in how long this will take or how much you spend and what is the timeline for actually accomplishing setting the system up?
It
Yeah.
looks like the
mean-
contract has an expiration of June 30th, 2023.
Yeah, it's got a year in it.
Year.
I understand that. So take a year to set those systems.
Well,
up.
I
And
don't
so how
think
many-
so, but I think they were giving
How
themselves,
many hours are we getting, is there an
they were
idea
giving
what the-
themselves the opportunity to get their schedules together when she could come. I don't think she was thinking about more than a week, but I'm not sure.
There's nothing that I could see in there that really indicated what you're looking at for a total cost to do it, which was, I was kind of curious about.
Mhm.
That's a good question, and I don't have a total answer for that.
Yeah, Shania just texted to or went through the chat and said that she is on the phone with the client. And that's why she's not, that's why she's muted,
Okay, yeah.
scheduling people. I
She's
think.
still, yeah, she's still doing double duty. She's a dispatcher till we get our dispatcher on.
Okay.
I mean, even like with Jeff, we have a maximum that we're approving.
Right, yeah,
Mhm.
that's a good question. And I don't have an answer.
So can we
Can we table this until
table for 2 weeks?
Nine can come on?
Or she can come on, one of the two. I mean, I would just think it'd be appropriate to approve something with a
Yeah,
Two clause.
ceiling on it.
Okay. How about this? How about? She says she can jump on in a few, phone ring again. So how about this? How about we hold this? Let's talk about mushrooms. And then if,
That's good.
and then if Shania gets a break, then we can see if she has that answer and maybe it can be part of the motion, or if not, we can bring it back if we need to.
Yeah.
Okay, I know you guys are just really excited to be talking about this. This is 6.3, which is discuss possible action on ORS 475A.718, regulation of psilocybin producing mushroom and fungi products. Who is impressed that I can say psilocybin? So.
I am.
I am.
I've just been making up some word as I've been reading.
We've been saying magic mushrooms in our
Yeah, shrooms.
because we were in the office. Okay, so just a little bit of background. I'm not going to go into the whole thing because you guys have a pretty good briefing that we borrowed from Washington County as they were considering this. Back in November 2020, Oregon voters approved ballot measure 109, which will legalize licensed and regulated manufacturing, transportation, delivery, sale, and purchase of psilocybin products and the provision of psilocybin services in Oregon. Gilliam County, our voters opposed that with 64 against, 36% in favor. The measure is now part of Oregon revised statutes, and Oregon Health Authority is in the rulemaking process to actually develop the rules. And so what we are seeing around the state right now is counties and city governments as well, although I don't think either of our cities have really addressed this, deciding whether they are going to how they're going to approach the law's implementation, which is scheduled in 2023, is when licenses will actually start being provided. So there's really, I mean, like I said, the memo that we attached from Washington County really outlines like the history of it all. It was very good stuff written by some smart attorneys, I'm sure. Rather than us trying to like capture that, we just included that for you for public
That
who,
was on there.
Yeah,
for publics who are interested in this issue and all the nitty-gritty details of how it's being regulated and how the rulemaking process is going. Go see our website because Washington County put together a very nice sort of when their board was looking at this. So basically, from what we have gathered, is there's really kind of 4 options for the court to consider. One, you could postpone action entirely and just allow the Oregon Health Authority's rulemaking to progress. Basically see how it plays out under the assumption that like, if somebody's going to locate probably one of the smallest, most remote counties in Oregon, is not the place that they're gonna go first. And just see how it plays out over the next year or two. So that's sort of option one. Option two is to focus on regulation of potential facilities through the planning process. So that would be developing local land use regulations, basically adding on to the code that we have, that Michelle, oversees, related to manufacturers and distribution facilities. As you have I don't know if this was included in Washington County or if I read it elsewhere, but it sounds like exclusive farm use is going to be,
It's in the Washington County.
yeah, they are going to allow manufacturing on, from the state level on exclusive farm use. Initially, when we were looking at this, I was thinking like, exactly what land would they build it on? Because any industrial land that is outside of the incorporated cities, we own. And so it might have been a moot point, but because they're including exclusive farm use, that expands the possibilities of where it could be located. And then option number 3 is to refer a temporary opt-out of the measure to the voters on the November 8th ballot. Some counties are doing that because OHA's rulemaking process is so far behind that we are not anticipating seeing final rules until fall, like literally probably a couple of weeks before they start issuing licenses. And so some counties are opting into this. Where we're seeing this happen is for counties whose voters approved the measure, but where the rules are not going to be known because we have no idea how to regulate these from a land use planning. And so I think even some counties whose voters approved it are saying, let's just hold on and like pause for 2 years so that we see what the rules are and we can catch up on our land use side to make sure that we're actually, doing this responsibly. And then the fourth option is to refer a permanent opt-out on the measure to the voters on the November 8th ballot. Regardless, I think this is important for the public to understand as well, regardless of the action that the court takes, we do not have authority over incorporated cities. So if our 2 cities do not opt out and we refer something, that's only going to be for county, like property that is outside of the incorporated cities. So manufacturer could still try to locate within either of our cities if the cities have not opted out. So I want to just make that one clear that we're only talking about unincorporated. The other things that you need to know is that this timeline is very tight. All of the counties that are taking action have basically been taking it this month because of the deadlines in order to get things to the county clerks and include things on the ballot. So for placement on the November 8th ballot, we need to have an approved ballot title to Ellen no later than August 19th. And then basically what happens is it gets published, the public has an opportunity to object to the title, and that then gets decided by the circuit court on whether the title is appropriate or not. And then once that happens, then Ellen actually has to go through the process of getting it certified to put on the ballot. And then of course actually has to get the ballots ready and print them. So that's why there's such a lead time, is that there's multiple stages. So all of this to say, like, we would need a decision today if you wanted to take action.
So in the numerical order of measures, was this put into play before measure 110? Measure 109? And yet we didn't learn anything from the consequences of measure 110. So we're going to pursue 109?
Yeah. So the other thing I need to say about timeline as well is that the state law that was passed says that we can only refer it to the ballots during a statewide general election. So this isn't something like, this is we either do it on this election or we need to wait until 2024, which is the next statewide election. So I just wanted to put that as well, like on option number 1, if we decided to wait, that's a 2-year bylaw. We would not be able to actually put it on the ballot again. We could obviously do the planning and the rulemaking piece. That's not restricted, but for option 1, it's that I just want to make really clear that that would not allow us to come back and try to do it at next primary election or something kind of midway. It's a general election bylaw. Let's see. Around our region, Delaney called people, or Googled to see what other county courts and commissions have done. Umatilla, Morrow, and Deschutes County are all moving forward with referring permanent opt-outs onto the ballot. Wasco County, their voters narrowly approved in the statewide one. And so they are opting to go the planning route. So they are not going to refer anything. They had a very good, I think Delaney sent you guys the link to theirs as well, had a very good planning presentation about how they might approach that. So that is the process that they're using. Sherman County is deciding today what they would like to do. And I don't know, Judge Jabolskis maybe indicated they might be leaning toward the ballot measure as well, but they're kind of where we are in that we don't have like final ordinances and resolutions drafted that we need. So it will be a scurry if we decide to do that to get everything noticed properly and on the court's agenda to approve. So that is the big high level like consideration. I do need direction from you guys today if you would like to pursue a ballot measure, because we need to notice them and get, there's an ordinance. So it's a 2-step process. There's an ordinance as well as a resolution. The ordinance requires 2 readings, same process that we just went through, and then the resolution, which can be done sort of simultaneously. But then there are other public notices about the ballot and all of those kinds of things. So, so we would need a decision today if you want to go that route. If you decide to go the planning route, then that's something we'd need to have Michelle start working on with legal counsel on how to even approach that, which is a whole nother set of things because we haven't seen the rules from OHA. So we're not really sure what we're regulating yet. And then if you decide that, nope, you want to just sit back and see how it unfolds, then obviously I don't really need anything other than that. So what are your initial thoughts?
I would move to refer a permanent opt-out of M109 to the voters on the November 8th ballot.
And I'll second that.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we refer a permanent opt-out of M109 to the voters on November 8th. Is there further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Fine.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so from a practical standpoint, the motion is great. I got it on there, but I actually have legal documents that are going to come back that we're going to have to vote on. So we will get working on those and make sure. I think legal counsel they anticipated we might be going in this direction. So we said, go ahead and start on the documents. Give us the 2 opt-out versions because I wasn't sure where you guys would land on that. And so they have at least drafts to us. So we will get started on getting those noticed and then scheduled for the next court meeting. So, cool. All right. Let's see. Shania, are you?
Yes, she's ready. I confirmed.
Can you unmute? Shania?
Are you guys there?
We are.
Okay, sorry about that.
So Commissioner Shannon had a question on cost, and if you had a thought on, I'm not sure if you could hear us while you were on the phone, or if you need us to kind of summarize what we were looking for.
Okay, so pretty much Karen would remotely assist us right now by getting the ODOT grants kind of lined out with a tracking system. She went and helped Tillamook County, and it took about a week for her to do. We would just charge her hourly. She would track her hours and report back to us with how much time was spent. And then once she's done with that, what we were thinking was we may want to revisit the idea, which then I would come back to you guys, of possibly keeping her on to assist with some periodic reporting through Optus. And that would just be a handful of hours a month, if not every couple months. But like I said, I'd really like to work with her first and see where that leads before I revisit kind of continuing on with her. So I guess if you have any more questions, Pat.
No, so I'd be correct, 40 hours at $40 would be $1,600 total cost.
Yeah, yep,
So if we approve no more than a couple thousand, then we would have enough cushion in there without, and we'd have a ceiling on it, be fine.
yeah, and then it'd be fine. And then if, like I said, if for some reason we wanted to continue on, I would definitely bring it back to you guys to do that, and it would be a different contract and all that, so.
Sounds good.
Okay, perfect.
All
You
right,
answered your question. Okay, so are you guys wanting to move forward on this?
Yeah,
You just want to amend the.
yeah,
or
just we
make
want to
sure that
amend
the-
it. We just want to amend the motion to, I move to approve the professional services contract with Karen Barntish for public transportation grant services up to $2,000.
Okay,
And I will second. Thank you.
good. So moved and seconded that we approve the professional services agreement contract with Karen Barntish for public transportation grant services in the amount of up to $2,000. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, let's go on to 6.4, which is consider appointment of Gilliam County Cultural Trust Coalition member. Miranda, do you want to just update who we have and where we are in recruitment?
Yeah, so we have 6 members currently, and Tara had reached out to me wanting to join, and she's from Condon, so she would be the last Condon person we would need. So we'd just be recruiting for Arlington residents now.
Still need 3,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Folks,
Three.
still need 3 in Arlington.
Yeah, and we have our first meeting, I think, picked out, so we'll be towards the end of July for the first meeting.
Because we have money to spend.
Yes.
We need to,
lots.
we
Quite
need
a bit
to
of money.
distribute it amongst the,
Yeah, I'm
county.
still trying to figure out if this extra money that we got is for this last year or if it's for this upcoming year. So depending on that, we may have to spend all of it by the
December
end of the
30th.
year. Yeah. So once I get clarification on that, I'll let you guys know, but.
The committee does have enough to meet, so we're not held up by waiting on the 3 Arlington members, but it would be great, since they're distributing quite a bit of money, to have as close to equal voices as we can. So I think it would be, if anybody, I think this is going to be one of those cases where we need to go ask people who we think might be a good fit to consider putting their name
Who's on
in.
from Arlington?
Bonnie and Carrie
Carrie Callan and Bonnie Irving.
No,
Bonnie.
Craxton, I'm gonna butcher the
I
last name
know, her last-
completely, Kraxenberg or something.
Does she
Oh,
live at
oh, okay.
Shetler?
Yes.
Yeah.
On
I-
Shetler
I
Flats, I
know the
think.
name. Okay, yeah.
I think she came to us through Sarah Bucker.
Record.
Okay, so if we want to move forward, I would just need a motion to go ahead and appoint Tara. I honestly kept this, I would have put it on consent agenda, but I just wanted to make sure that we were updating and still reminding folks
So
that we're
people-
still looking for people
Still want people.
from Arlington, so.
I move to appoint Tara McIntosh to the Gilliam County Cultural Coalition for a 3-year term effective July 20th, 2022 through June 30th, 2025. Thank you, Tara.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded that we appoint Tara McIntosh to the Gilliam County Cultural Coalition for a 3-year term effective July 20th, 2022 through June 30th, 2025. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we are on to announcements and next meeting. Next meeting will be August 3rd in the courthouse in Condon. Sherry, what do you got going on?
Well, let's see, what have I been doing? I sat in on the broadband AOC and regional meeting on the 12th. And mostly Catherine Griner was on there as well. And is she with us today?
I don't think she signed on.
Okay, so really, she and I kind of talked about it when the meeting was over, and one of the only things I even got out of the meeting was that there are federal dollars. And then there was a lot of complaining about about services, and I'm not sure it was as productive as it may have been, but I think they'll be convening again, and hopefully we'll make some progress instead. But it was interesting to hear what other people in the regions have to say. Everybody's, on the same page.
Mhm.
But solutions weren't really thrown out. It was more problems. So hopefully we'll come up with some solutions. And let's see, what have I got coming up? The wildfire risk management map discussions will be tomorrow morning. I was going to get in on that again. I did that previously. We're still mapping us out. And I have Capco on Friday at 11, and that is not a Zoom platform, Microsoft Meetings platform, if anyone's interested. And that's it. Working with transportation, we're trying to hire some drivers, and that's coming along.
And did you want to announce your coordinator, or do you want to wait until August? Or do you want Shania to announce your coordinator? Or your dispatcher? I
I
mean.
was saying.
Not your coordinator, your dispatcher.
Yeah, I'm not sure if
Nope.
if she's ready to do that or not, so I'll
Maybe wait till August.
defer to her on that one. Yeah,
Shania, are you still there?
she's still being a dispatcher.
Still being a dispatcher.
But we do
Yeah.
have a dispatcher coming on in August. So,
Yeah, slip of the tongue. We have a dispatcher. Shania is the coordinator.
yeah, so she'll be getting some assistance there.
She just ran to pick somebody up at the clinic.
Yeah,
Okay,
see?
we'll wait until she's working hard, so we'll just wait until August. And then-
All right.
Thank you. What do you got going on, Pat?
I missed the Korea meeting because I was in Columbus last week, but I did talk to Mike MacArthur at the Senior Blues Golf Tournament last Monday, and kind of got an up-to-date on it. I want to talk about the wind in the ocean, turbine stuff on the Oregon coast. So they also did tour of Prineville. Some of the interesting stuff we talked about in Prineville, and did a tour of their wastewater treatment plant is now powered by solar on a Newsom project over there, and that project is set up to run power directly into Bend and into Redmond, I believe. So there's some direct transmission coming out of solar into some local communities, it sounds
That's
like.
good.
And I attended the port meeting. And I know we've got a work session, but it did sound like the port is going to pursue the airport project based on some grant funding or some possible funding that's out there that just has located for both Condon Airport and the
Cool.
Arlington Airport. So
Great.
I think that'll probably, in a discussion with them, I think that they're probably going to want those funds we talked about originally.
But I thought the airport actually
They'll have
belongs
to-
to the city,
They'll have to
so.
pull the city into the conversation, and they're working on that, but I
Okay.
think they'd like to keep, not give up that.
Okay.
Just yet. Okay.
Yeah. And I think that there's an EOSA meeting coming up, but I think that's
Yeah, there is. I
pretty
don't
much
remember what it was either.
where we're at today.
So
Well, I am
for,
meeting with Jolie in the morning to talk about how to do the weed reporting moving forward. We're looking at moving that into her that Dawn had been doing in the past, so.
That'd be good.
great. So for us, we have been, for me, Delaney, focus on, we've gotten to focus on big picture stuff. So, which is exciting. We have been doing a lot of childcare related meetings, including the rocket planning process, which is almost dialed in now, which is exciting. You've heard quite a bit of the other sort of updates for our childcare providers, but we're also talking to the ESD. I have not had a chance to meet with the new school superintendent in Arlington, but I did meet with one in Condon, trying to get them engaged in this issue as well. And that's been well received from them. So I feel really optimistic about some partnerships that maybe have not previously been explored. Let me see what else. We also have been following up from our fiber discussion. We were able to get the maps from Pacific Core.
Good.
So that was a good win. And then we also had a really enlightening conversation with Aaron Moss over in Morrow County, who's doing their broadband. Key takeaway is we really need Aaron Moss to work for us. He was
Yeah, he was on
very
that-
sharp.
He was on that broadband meeting, and yeah, I totally agree.
It took me a lot to not be like, what, how much is Morrow County paying you?
Right, yeah.
How can I make it worth your while to come across? Super sharp. We did discuss the possibility of collaboration, depending on, they are hopefully this week, they might have already gotten them, getting back sort of their high level, some of their, they already have maps, but some of their high level, like first stab at what it would look like to deploy fiber to every home. So they have 4 tiers, similar, we had discussed during the work session, they're doing an all fiber and then sort of a mix, 4 different tiers of based on cost and geography and stuff like that. And so we talked about, you know, pockets like Lone Rock where maybe that fiber line may be actually be coming in from Morrow County, and what does that look like? And are there possibilities for us to jointly apply for funds for certain sections of builds that are going to have some overlap?
Right.
So we at least started that conversation. Obviously that's something that is above his pay grade to decide, but he said that he would take that back to their action team and continue the discussion. We did ask to be included on their agenda notices, and he takes minutes that have been actually very enlightening. To, like, I read them and I'm like, I know more about funding now just from reading the summary than what I found from all of the communications from the state and the feds. So for one of the key takeaways, and I'm just mentioning this as a timeline piece, is Morrow County appears to be pursuing they're trying to avoid going after Connect America grants, the federal grants, because they're so restrictive on speeds. And they are instead going after state money, which appears to be a little looser in restriction. And so, but the timelines for those, we did not, Delaney and I looked at each other like, are you kidding me? Like, we should start seeing some rolling out this fall.
Yes.
So all of this to say, like, we are planning on still continuing with Eric to go full steam ahead on like getting maps. One of the things that we did not have on our maps that I would like to see if they can add is Morrow County approached it the opposite way. They found all the homes and figured out what their speeds were, and then they figured out what was connecting.
They got
Whereas
information from the internet service providers. They went to
themselves
them.
on who they were serving. And so they started with that map, and then they overlaid that map with Columbia Basin's power lines and all of that kind of stuff. Whereas we approached it with what are the assets rather than the homes. And so I don't think either way is wrong, but it was interesting because then what they color coded the houses so they could see clusters that they could go after a little bit more easily. And so I think we may go back to Eric and give him that feedback of if there was a way to do that as well on the maps that he showed us. I think that would help us if we end up needing to roll this out in stages, that might help us see where clusters are. So, but Aaron did say, like, if he could help us with anything, let him know. He's happy to be a resource. So that I just wanted to let you know that loop has been closed, and he was a very impressive person. So I feel like we learned a lot. He gave us some good contacts of things that are happening that are not, like, for instance, one of the things that Ford Family Foundation is working on is possibly providing resources to communities to help them access those grants. So we're trying to get connected with whoever's working on that over there to see if we can get first in line kind of to snag up somebody to help us write the grants and figure out those kinds of things. So it was a very, like, I felt very good after that meeting, although I also felt like we had a lot still to learn too about how all of this funding is going to work. So that is moving forward. On the Fiber Fellow itself, Catherine and I met with one very promising young woman who ended up telling us, unfortunately, no, because she has some other job prospects that were just too enticing that she couldn't pass up. So I am in the process of circling back with the AmeriCorps sort of group and asking, do we have a second candidate? Where are we with this? It is possible that that will fall through just because of the timeline of when they need to have it on board. They start their training in early August, and so it would be a very tight timeline if they're able to find another candidate. So we may end up needing to just really figure out, like, if there are ways to work more collaboratively with Aaron. He seems to really, as he told us, that this is all he's focused on for the last year. And so he's very knowledgeable about, and so maybe it's just some combination of doing that and then and doing the best we can on our end to do what we need to do. So that's on fiber. Already updated you on childcare. The other thing I wanted to let you guys know is that AOC is coming to Gilliam County. So the district that we are in this fall, they do district meetings. As you guys remember, you've been to some of them. We are up for hosting. And so that will be in September.
The 22nd of September is when it's scheduled.
The 22nd. Mackenzie reached out yesterday, 2 days ago, to ask if we were willing to host. I said absolutely. I also said that we were willing to cover lunch. I hope I didn't overstep, but I thought that was reasonable. I think she said usually they plan for up to 30, which was not a huge amount for us to cover. My question to you, commissioners, is do you have a preference of Arlington or Convent and thoughts of where we should host it?
I mean, sure, do it upstairs if we want to do it in Arlington. It's whatever.
Whatever works out.
Okay, so you don't have a strong preference.
I don't.
Okay. All right, so Delaney and I'll sort that. It may make sense because people are driving in from, for the most part, along the freeway. I mean, most of Region 3 is 84 counties. So it may make sense to do it in Arlington just for people's
Get a
travel.
date so that we can tie the room up.
Yeah.
September 22nd.
The 22nd.
I'll just make sure that that stays open until we make a decision.
Okay. Yeah, we'll probably work on it this afternoon because I think they wanted to get an agenda out next week.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds
So
good.
that's exciting.
that
Happy
is
to host
exciting.
our county counterparts. Leah, you should definitely put that on your list to come see us if you can.
Yeah, definitely.
Except for I put it for July. I think I can change the month.
Yeah, September. But that'll give you a good opportunity to meet some of our colleagues, which is always a lot of fun. Other than that, I think those are the big things.
There's one other thing that I kind of forgot. Herb Winters reached out to me last week and sounds like his board would like to take a more active role in the advisory capacity for the weed department. And so I'm going to go to their next board meeting and we'll see what their board is thinking. And
Nori, do you want to?
Yeah, Nori reached out to me on Monday. She called the office, and so I reached out in coordination with Jolie to the state noxious weed department stuff and asked if they have any regulations for the weed advisory committee, because I couldn't find
Cool.
anything readily available anywhere. So we're waiting to hear back from them, so that way you guys,
keep me in that loop,
Yeah.
please.
so that way you have information
Right, I'll
to,
need everything I can get for their board
Yeah.
So yeah, I coordinated with Jolie on that, so we'll make sure to pass it through to you if we hear anything back.
Yeah, we're trying to, when we can, try to do cross coordination, whereas normally we would hand off a project and say, okay, this is Jolie's. It's been like, no, can you two work together to
Absolutely.
have an opportunity to like get to know each other's, departments and just have, so we're trying to do more of that. One of those projects, by the way, that is coming up, that is several departments working on is the county has a series of random lots, tax lots that we have acquired that are not really, I mean, like, you look at a map in Arlington or in Condon, we have random lots that we own from people who have defaulted on taxes and things over the years. Some of those are starting to become some like issues because they're growing weeds. And so we're having to send maintenance down to manage those and do all the things. So that is exactly what we are looking at. So Jolie is in the process of going through all of the tax lots in the county and figuring out which are county owned, which are those off like random squares and odd shaped ones that are in random places.
In the middle of somebody else's property.
Exactly. We have a couple of those. Talking to Dewey to make sure that those weren't actually ones that, like sometimes we have some weird ones that are on the side of the road that we're not sure if those are like, he may want to store a rock there, like there's a purpose to them and we're just not aware of them. But then once we kind of dial down that list, then Jolie and Delaney are going to work with our legal counsel on figuring out for each property. It's based on like how the property is zoned, how we have to sell it. So in some cases, we may be able to contact the land, like if it's a landlocked one, we may be able to contact the landowner around it and say, do you want this random square that we happen to have? For others, depending on how they're zoned and how much they're valued, we might have to do like a sheriff's sale for them, depending on what they are. So Jolie and Delaney would be working with legal counsel to go through lot by lot, basically tax lot by tax lot, to figure out what the court's options are. And then they would come to you guys with a recommendation on what to do with them. But I just wanted to let you know, like, that's one example where the assessor's office, the road department and the county court are working jointly across on that project. So I think that is all that I have. Anything else for the good of the order? Delaney just did remind me that, and Pat had mentioned this earlier, that we do have on the books the work session with the port to take place during our second meeting in August. It'll be in the afternoon here in Arlington. So the 17th.
Yep.
Is that right?
Upstairs in the
So just wanted to, obviously commissioners knew that, but for anybody else who's interested in kind of tracking what's
So we're
happening.
gonna do that in the big room.
Yeah, because the port, I think, is gonna have a regular meeting after the work session ends, so that way they can just have that room afterwards.
And maybe they'll even have their fun, fancy smartboard and stuff that we funded.
They did say they were going to order it to hopefully have it in place prior to that meeting.
Well, we got months.
Yeah,
Yeah, cool.
so that could be good. All right, it is, if there's not,
Possibly get something within a month these days.
Right, yeah.
good luck. If there's nothing else for the good of the order, it is 11:03 and I will adjourn the meeting.